Today's story is about the Robinson family. The Robinson family comprised of Richard, 42, his better half Shirley, and their 4 kids, Richie, 19, Gary, 17, Randy, 12, and Susan, matured 7. Richard claimed and worked a little publicizing organization called R.C. Robinson and Associates, and furthermore distributed a magazine called Impresario. His significant other of 20 years, Shirley, took great consideration of the home and the family, and they generally went to chapel routinely. On July 22, 1968, a close-by neighbor had called the overseer of the area, Monty Bliss, guaranteeing she was attempting to hold an extension game in her home, and there was a terrible smell coming from the Robinsons' lodge. He thumped on the entryway yet got no response. Happiness opened the entryway, and the sight that welcomed him made him alert the specialist right away. It was assessed that the family had been dead for around a month, given the degree of the deterioration, and the nearby medical clinic would not take them because of their state. It was unsure on the off chance that she had been assaulted, as the clinical analysts neglected to find any proof thusly. However, how her body was presented demonstrates some kind of rape had happened. From what the crime location showed, the executioner had moved toward the house around dusk, and at first discharged shots into the lounge room utilizing. Though no one can easily explain why, the executioner then, at that point, returned to Susan and struck her in the head with a mallet. To guarantee they were undeniably polished off, every individual from the Robinson family was then shot once again in the head. As the killer was going out, he hauled Richard, Randy, and Susan into the corridor and put a sweeping over Shirley. On investigating Richard's life, examiners observed that he was not exactly the man everybody thought he was. The director of the gathering was supposedly a man named Robert. Before the Robinson family left for their doomed getaway, Richard had been dropping clues around that he was anticipating a visit from a Mr. Roberts, while they would be at the lodge to discuss an extravagant arrangement. Around similar time as the killings, the secretary had experienced an unnatural birth cycle, and there were that the child was Robinson's, and not her spouse's, all things considered. One of those families was supposedly connected with coordinated wrongdoing, so the criminal investigators needed to consider the killings were a hit as recompense. Right off the bat in 1970, a detainee at Leavenworth Jail in Kansas recounted a story to the criminal investigators that ensnared himself and 2 different men in the killings of the Robinsons. The prisoner was Alexander Bloxam, alluded to as a vocation criminal, who had been residing in a shelter with a man named Mark Warren Brockback in 1968. He sat down on the floor, and as Richard attempted to help him, Matthews came into the lodge and started shooting. The 3 men, Bloxam, Brock, and Matthews, were given polygraph tests to affirm or preclude their story. Collins had really utilized his uncle's home to kill a 18-year elderly person named Karen Sue Beinman, an understudy at a similar college Collins joined in. Stories came about that Richie and Collins were in a similar organization there, and would in this way have known one another. Collins unyieldingly denies taking any part in the killings of the Robinson family. During their examination, a criminological bookkeeper was gotten to break down the monetary undertakings of the ROBISO and the publicizing organization, and the magazine Richard possessed. Scalaro had been left responsible for the 2 organizations for the late spring, while the Robinsons were holiday, and this ensnared Scalaro as the executioner because of misappropriation, and his attempting to conceal his monetary wrongdoing. Until now, there has been no goal in this numerous homicide case. In 2013, analysts were all the while watching out for the open case, and they have kept on exploring as the years have passed on. Despite the fact that there have been numerous speculations and different suspects, they have always been unable to simply limit it down to one. With such countless individuals currently passed on, a ton of data will have kicked the bucket with them, so it turns out to be significantly more confounded over the long haul. They are appealing to God for some sort of supernatural occurrence that somebody will admit, or if nothing else offer explicit data, so they can at long last serve equity on the executioner or enemies of the Robinson family. That's it. We will be back with some other real murder mysteries. Thanks for watching the video.